Welcome to the Global Discussion, discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. My name is Simon Hodgkins, and it's a real pleasure today to be joined by Wanita Zoghby-Fourie, also known as Wanita Z. And it's a pleasure to have you here on the show. You're very welcome to the podcast. Let me begin, as I like to, by asking you, our guest today, to tell us a little bit about the world of Wanita Z. What are you involved in? What kind of work do you do on sort of a daily, weekly basis? Tell us about the world of Wanita Z.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Simon. Well, let's see. For me, I am the founder of the Online Business Academy, and our motto is teach, learn, and inspire, which is perfect for this podcast, right? Because this is pretty much what you do through everything when you're interviewing people, etc. So, the Online Business Academy is specifically focused in the social media and digital marketing space. And we do actually train at the leadership level or business ownership level as well, specifically at that level. So we designed and developed the social media and digital marketing blueprint about 12 years ago already. And it's wonderful because it lets people see exactly what social media and digital marketing actually is. Because so many people think it is just the social media channels. So it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, and it's not. It's strategically everything that goes into that, even before you set up a business or before you run a digital marketing or social media department in a huge corporate. So that's pretty much what we do in a nutshell. I mean, I can talk about all of it. So I love having the conversation. So I'd love you to kind of delve in and let's just discuss it.
Well, thank you, Wanita. Thanks for that introduction. It does set us up nicely for our discussion today. And just going back to something that you said, yeah, you're definitely in the right place because as our audience knows around the world, whether they're watching or listening, we focus very much on creatives and leaders and thinkers. And obviously at the Online Business Academy, which you're the chief executive officer of, you do an awful lot of this kind of work in terms of strategy, in terms of how people review, how they plan, how they manage. And it's
Yes.
very interesting that you've been, I think I'm right in saying it's kind of 12 years kind of stage at this
Yeah.
point. So you've obviously seen, I'm just thinking of the change in with AI in the last couple of years, for example. You must have seen a tremendous amount of change in this online world. When you
Oh,
think
yes.
back to when you kicked it off to where we're at now, is it completely different?
It is actually. It's very, very different. I remember, and if I go back 12 years now, I remember social media was kind of just coming through the door, and people were just kind of hearing about it, not even getting into it. And for me to go and look for clients, I had to actually knock on doors and explain to them what social media was going to be because I saw it coming down the line, and I thought this is going to be huge for business. If they can get in now, it'll be so good for them. And a lot of the businesses that I spoke to went, no, not interested. This is a fad. It's going to go away. And then I remember LinkedIn. I remember going onto LinkedIn and searching for social media jobs. So I went, okay, let's see what it looks like on LinkedIn. And at that time, there were literally only 6 or 7 jobs about social media. And now, when you start searching for social media jobs, there's social media managers, social media influencer, content managers, digital marketing managers, digital marketing influencers, AI influencers, and I even have screenshots, Simon, of what LinkedIn looked like 7, 8, 9 years ago. It is hilarious. And Facebook advertising was so easy when they brought it out because there were no rules, there were no regulations. They just kind of set up something and you could advertise and you got great hits on it. And, the cost per click was really low. Where now it's become so complex. It's a job in its own right where you've got to learn how to do social media, advertising in a specific way so that you can target your audience and use the tools correctly. Um, and then I think about AI that has just obviously come in. And AI, even though we say it's come in, I mean, there's been a lot of work with Google, as you know, over the last few 7 years or so, where they've been forward thinking in all of this. And then of course we had ChatGPT, you've got Bard, you've got I'm trying to think of all of them now. I know you're one of the AI gurus, so I'm not going to go there. But I use it, and it's so intriguing even to watch now how people have jumped onto, for example, ChatGPT as one of the AI tools, and have got totally engrossed in it, and are in many respects not using it properly, or expecting it to do everything for them. So it is going to be an interesting journey to see how that plays out, what it looks like, and what it looks like in the learning space, in the education space as well. So I'm excited to see what people are going to do as far as AI is concerned.
And
I'd
it's
love to hear your
interesting.
thoughts.
Well,
Yeah.
look, I was just going to say it's interesting to hear you because you took me on a little trip down memory lane there when the lack of jobs on LinkedIn initially, and is this social media thing going to catch on? And
Yeah.
now it's just something we take for granted, and there's so many digital jobs. And I think AI, it's kind of felt a little bit like that over the last couple of years, hasn't it? We're starting to see a lot more jobs where people with AI experience now. It's very hard to people to have 10 years AI experience at this stage, but
No.
we are starting to see some of the jobs changing. We are seeing people's roles to involve a lot more use of AI, and of course that feeds into exactly what you're talking about. People need training, they need
Yeah.
mentoring, they need understanding, they need to go and listen to people speaking about these different types. And then we've got not only the main, the big ones that you were mentioning, whether it is Google or OpenAI, the chat GPTs. You've got people making their own GPTs now with
Yeah.
like a GPT app store. You've got lots of copycats out there. Microsoft are doing huge work in this area too.
Yes.
And all of the big, I suppose a lot of the big companies that are particularly in the software space have incorporated AI into their product set really quickly. I'm thinking of people like Adobe, for example. They just
Yeah.
had to build this stuff in. So when it comes to, just to bring it back to what you do a little bit, Wanita, when it comes to sort of your own events and speaking engagements and your own membership, I know of people that are involved in your world with the online business academy. This topic must be coming up an awful lot lately.
Oh, yeah. It is. It's a hot topic now. So, of course, it is coming up quite a bit. I think this, like social media and digital marketing, has evolved and progressed, and we're looking at things now more around the legalities, how, the privacy of information, how do we actually control social media in terms of, how people are putting information out there, misinformation and things like that. I think you're coming to AI now, and that is going to be really interesting because AI is only as good as the information that gets pumped into it initially, and obviously how quickly it learns from that information. And I don't know if you remember, Simon, and I just can't think of the name of it at the moment, but they tried this on Twitter. So when it was still Twitter and not X, they actually created a bit of an AI on Twitter to learn from people and then put information out there. And it was so intriguing because the actual AI came back and had so much negative information and answered things in a negative way. I don't know if you remember this. This was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so that was, I would assume, an exercise for whoever was doing it to go, what does this look like if we're going down the route of AI? Because, as I said, it's only as good as the information that's going into it and how much it can actually pick up. And you and I both know there's really good stuff on the internet and there's real rubbish on the internet. I can put something in and AI can pick it up and go, yeah, that's interesting. And it may not even be true. So yeah, this is going to be, and I think with everyone now, I always say, don't take for granted that AI is telling you that what it's giving you is correct. You need to have a think about it. And also, this now, for me, establishes the experts from people just trying to do. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If you come and I was talking to somebody about this today, it was quite funny. If you're coming into, say you're coming into social media and you go, okay, I am just going to go and type in AI and go, hey, AI, write me 5 blogs on social media. Okay. And AI will then write 5 blogs for you on social media. If you don't know what's right and wrong, you haven't been in the industry and you don't go and do the research back on it to check what has been given to you, you can actually end up with a bit of misinformation. And I've tested it out. Whereas if you're an expert in the field, you wouldn't be saying broad terms. You'd actually know how to hone in because you'd already know, the issues, the problems, what the creatives, and you'd be able to hone in more specifically and ask more specific questions that show you're an expert. Um, but I love AI, and I think that if you're not learning it and you're not getting into it, you're going to be left behind. And I think everybody says that now. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think the conversation has moved on rapidly. It's probably one of the
Yeah,
fastest adoptions we've seen. In I suppose in sort of the more privileged areas of the planet, there are still some people that are struggling and don't have access to the same type of
yeah.
technology or infrastructure even. But it has taken off significantly.
Yeah. And I was going to say, you talk about technology and infrastructure. There's still places that don't get access to social media. So, it's still a problem worldwide, where people just don't have, whether it's government blocking specific things or whether it's actual, infrastructure and people just don't have access to it. So it is going to be interesting to see how the world moves forward in some respects and how in other respects, people are still kind of left in the dark and are not even aware of, what you can do. AI is such a fascinating topic. Yeah.
For sure. And look, I don't want to go down the AI rabbit hole because
No,
I've done
no.
that many times. But just to go back to a couple of things that you mentioned, like I know just when you talked about Twitter or X, as we all know it as now, I think it was only as early as sort of late last year where they put out a statement that they were using all of the tweets, the images, the videos, the spoken word on Twitter Spaces. It was all going in to train their AI models.
Yeah.
So whether they were using natural language processing, computer vision, or even audio like speech recognition, all that
Yeah.
data was going to be extracted from your content that you were putting out there on Elon's platform, and used to help train the models. Now, anybody who's been on Twitter for more than a week or X for more than a week knows that's that's a double-edged sword. And
It is
you're
so
right.
bad.
Yeah, you've pointed that out. I think that like garbage in, garbage out, I was taught when I first started learning about computing and coding, and it's only as good as the data that it's trained on. It's only as good as the large language model data sets that have been fed into the large language models, I should say.
So you can have topics that are very black and white, like they just are. It's very black and white. Financial, very black and white. That's the way this is the way you do your financials. This is the way you set up your books. This is the way. But then you start talking about topics on very broadly leadership education or even politics. I'm not going to go down the political route, but even leadership. And then you start looking at the human behavior around that. And people, it's so complex because people then you believe what they believe is correct, where other people may not. So it's value systems. It is how people have been raised. It's cultures. There's so much to take into consideration when you're looking at the human facet of this that you're talking about with Twitter and X, gathering information. And I'm being very politically correct while I say this.
I appreciate that, but you're right, and I think just coming back to the data for a moment,
Mm.
the data that it's being trained on, although it is vast in one sense, it's also quite limited in a global sense,
Yes.
both from a language, although that is improving a little, but also from a cultural input and
Yeah.
different viewpoints. It isn't as open and as open AI was about this originally. I think that was some of the ethos behind it. But it's very hard to scale businesses when it's ultimately it comes down to the commercials, I think is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So hopefully it does good for everybody. I'm a big supporter of AI for good, and I think you're coming at it from that perspective too. There's good and bad in
Yes.
all technology. There's good and bad in social media. There's good and bad in the World Wide Web as we know it now, or the digital superhighway, I think we used to call it many years ago. And AI will be no different, right? We'll go through the bell curve if we're not already through it. And it will improve our lives hopefully in lots of ways, and I'm sure it will upset things in lots of ways, and people are, whether they're fearful of jobs or what it does to the future of work, all that's still playing out, I think, Wanita.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think the future is going to look a lot different technologically than obviously what it does now. So it is going to be interesting to see what the future holds. I'm excited for it, but I think we still have to remember the humans and human behavior is very complex. So,
Yeah.
factor that in and you have the complexity. Yeah.
So look, I'm going to take a step off the AI treadmill for a moment. I'm just going to go over here because I want to talk a little bit more about leadership, about motivation. And I want
Yeah.
to, because I like a little bird tells me that you've picked up the paintbrushes recently. You've maybe been dabbling in a little bit of learning Italian, those kind of
Woo!
areas. And I want to kind of bring that into my question, which is back to this being human, back to humans creating
Yeah.
strategies and being inspired and putting some time aside to be maybe a little bit more creative in life. Because again, back to our core audience, creatives and leaders and thinkers, it's not a I just do this, I just do that. It's this portfolio to life, isn't it? And how does that work
Yeah.
into what you do when you talk about teaching, learning, and inspiring?
That is such a great question, Simon. And this even fits into goal setting, believe it or not. So I'm going to tell you from my perspective. So just in terms of the painting that you're talking about, when I was at school, I always had the urge to do art, and my mother said no. She went like, "You cannot do any art because you have to do these subjects at school that you can become a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher, whatever it is. But art is like it's not, something that you can make money from." And it's so funny when you look back on culturally on things in the past on how our parents raised us for what the expectation was. And I was very fortunate to actually have parents that were forward thinking and a father that was very much about equality male female. So, as a girl growing up, he always said that you do whatever you want to. And in our home, my brother used to cook, he used to bake. And I'm talking about an age where, that was weirdly more female dominated than male. And I used to change plugs and lights and saw and help do tiling. So it was a lot of fun. I was a tomboy and a very feminine girl. So I used to do ballet as well. And then 3, 4 months ago, I went, you know what? I have this urge to paint and I really, really am going to do it. And I picked up canvas and just painted. And I'm having a bit of fun with it. I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I'm having fun with it. And I think the moral of the story here is, and from a teach, learn, inspire, is sometimes you can, even the best people in your life, you can have an urge inside you to do something, and even the best people in your life with the best intentions can hold you back from that. And if you allow that to happen, and I know that I was small and, circumstances and things like that, but if you allow that to happen, you can have the suppressed side of you that really wants to come out, and hopefully it does eventually, like it did with me. But I kind of think if you are a leader and you have people under you that have these urges or feel that they can do things, they feel that they can move forward with certain things, give them a try. I mean, give them a go in the thing that they want to try. What does it cost you? Even if you do it for a week or so and see, you never know, you might have an absolute gem under you. And I say this because when I was with one of the banks, we were running the call center. I was the training and development lead, and I've set up the first contact center assessment area in call centers in South Africa. And in the training area, I was looking for trainers to do customer service training, your leadership training, etc. And I'd inherited a few trainers, and they were good, they were okay, but to me, they didn't have um, that customer service training side of them. They were more technology trainers, and they're different kinds of trainers. And I remember a receptionist, and she was absolutely bubbly and amazing and really intelligent, but they pigeonholed her. And I said to her, "Why don't you apply for the role?" And she did. And she ended up being one of the most amazing trainers because she had an opportunity, and ended up moving on to becoming an amazing manager in another bank. And that to me is true leadership. It's growing your people so that sometimes they out, outshine you, they're better than you, or they move on to things that, that they can make a difference in life. To me, that's true leadership. And it's recognizing, the potential in your people. So, yes, I hope that
Well,
answers your question.
I like that a lot, and thank you so much
Yeah.
because you've shared some advice there with our audience, and you've given people some insights into that as well. So thank you. I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
It brings me nicely on to the question I want to ask you, which is, how do you go about, because you teach this stuff all day long, but when it comes to your own planning and what the next 6 months, 12 months looks like, how do you think about your business? How do you go about planning? What's on your own horizon? What are you hoping to achieve
Yeah.
over the next 6, 12 months? How does that work in Wanita's world?
Oh, I that's a great question. So, first of all, I never used to be a planner. I used to be one of these people that would just go, you know what? I have this idea. I'm just going to go off and do it and see how it works. As you mature in life, you realize the real benefits of actually planning. And because I wasn't great at it, I actually had to learn how to do it properly. And I say how to because, there are people out there that will say to you, you know what, I just do spur of the moment stuff, or I don't really plan, I just go and do it. But there's a real benefit to actually planning. And I run goal setting and planning workshops now to teach people how to. So the first thing that I want to say about the planning of goals is understand what your real big goals are and really have them. Like I say, dream goals. So if you want to buy a house, or like for me, a dream goal now is to be able to speak Italian fluently. And I say it's a dream goal because I know that it's not going to happen overnight. And no matter how much I learn, because I'm not in an Italian environment, it's going to take me a bit longer than if I was in an Italian environment. So I've set my goal for that for 4 years. And so that's like a 4-year goal to speak fluently. And I'm a year down the line now. So I've been doing it for exactly a year next month, which is great. And I'm impressed with where I'm at, but I still have a long way to go. So here's the thing: have the big goals, but there must be a purpose and a reason behind it. And I'm going to use the Italian because I had a friend that joined me in the Italian. And the reason why she joined is because she wanted to meet an Italian man. That was her goal. And then did meet an Italian man. It didn't work out. And she went, you know what, this is it. I'm leaving Italian. And so that's the point. The point is the purpose for her wasn't strong enough or big enough for her to actually meet that goal. And this happens in business as well. You're a business owner and you're going, I want to hit $1 million by the end of the year. I often sit down with business owners and go, okay, but what does that look like for you? If you want to hit $1 million by the end of the year, what does that look like in terms of your product, your service? And so that's one aspect. But what does it look like in terms of time with your family? What does it look like in terms of your health? What does it look like for you that you're a holistic person? Are you actually going to be able to do 18, 20 hours a day? Because that's what it means to get to the 1 million. Or are you going to build a team around you? How are you going to actually do this? So it's thinking strategically about the goal and taking people backwards and really letting them think about it. And at what point would you bring people in so that you can step back, you can do a little bit more? And then what is important to you? Like, is your family important or not? Are you prepared to sacrifice or not? And then is it $1 million goal, or do you bring it down to 500? Or is it a 2 million, you bring it down to 1 million? So it's kind of understanding those big goals and the passion around them and the real value. Like, why do you really want to do it? Like, what's the big thing for you? Then for me, what I do is the minute I have those goals, so like for example, the Italian is 4 years, but I have my business goal, so a long-term goal. Then what I do is I chunk it back year by year, and then I'll chunk this year. So now I chunk it into quarters, and I go, okay, in order to achieve that, I have to do these things this quarter, these things this quarter, these things this quarter, and these things this quarter. And then I manage that and, lead everything that I do. And I always throw personal goals in with my business goals. Because if you don't, you can get so caught up, especially if you're a business owner, in just running your business and that becomes your life and that's all you ever do. So it's really thinking about those other goals that you can kind of throw into it and then putting time aside for it, making it happen, and doing it for a reason. It's like, for me, it's no good getting a goal and you don't have a proper purpose or a proper reason for it, whether it's to leave a legacy behind. For me, I want to leave a legacy where I know that I've touched people's lives, I've trained them, they're better off for it, whether it is in the leadership space by giving them coaching and advice, whether it's in the strategic space by helping a business to actually grow, or whether it's in the education space by, giving advice on whether it's LinkedIn and somebody goes and implements and then they get X amount of clients. I've just helped a client. Now I took them on 2 weeks ago, actually literally 2 weeks ago. And they were going, oh, this social media stuff doesn't work. And I went, just tell me what your goal is. And it was so interesting because they're on the brink of like just giving up. And I said, let's just give it a go. But what, like, do you really want to do this? Like, do you actually want to carry on? And do you want to do this? And I know it's a weird question to ask, but sometimes people are burnt out, they've had enough, and they shouldn't be in business. They shouldn't be. They should move on and do something else. And I know that's weird because it kind of, for me, it's more important about the person than them struggling in something that they're never going to be good at, or it's never going to work because they're not that personality type, or they don't have the skills for it, or they're not prepared to learn. So I took this company on, and within the first week, they came back and went, Wanita, we've had like 100 more sales already, and we've had we've got all these new people coming through the door. And I was like, yes, because it works. The stuff works, but it only works if you have the passion and you're doing it. Like social media, digital marketing can be amazing, but if the company hasn't got the processes in place, they haven't got the people to handle the sales, they haven't got the people to handle the customer service, it's not going to work. It'll drop off somewhere. There'll be some disconnect. So, in terms of goal setting, once you know what it is that you want to do, you've got to work back and go, well, what do I need to make this work? How do I make it work? And then implement, like take action and do it. Like do something every single day. Just take action.
You've dropped some real wisdom there, Wanita.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that information and that context and those examples, because I know for people watching and listening to this episode, some people do feel like that. They've tried social
Yeah.
media, they've tried to increase sales for their business. It's not kind of working. And that brings me on to the last couple of things I want to ask you before we finish up here today. So, firstly, is there anything else we haven't touched on or something that you'd want to leave our audience with to think about? And secondly, if people want to reach out and find out more about the Online Business Academy, about the work that you do with individuals and companies, where's the best place to send people to, Wanita?
Wonderful. Okay, so if there's anything that I haven't touched, there's so much that I haven't touched on. Simon, I think you and I could talk for hours. I mean, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing as well. But I think the one thing that I heard once, and it always stuck with me, and it's got nothing to do with work, it's to do with your life. And it was when you die one day, on your gravestone, it has the day that you were born and the day that you died. And then there's a dash in between. And then you always want to think that that dash in between the day you were born and the day you died is your life. So you want to make the most of that dash in between those two dates. And that's what I want to leave people with. I want to say, you know what? Treat people the way you want to be treated. If you're a leader out there, be a servant leader. Leading is not about being autocratic, about making all the decisions, etc. It is about listening to your people. It is about thinking things differently. You don't have to do everything. Be a servant leader. Social media, digital marketing, AI works for your business if you know how to. And from a people perspective, be good to your customers, they'll be good to you, and just have fun. Like, try and have as much fun as possible and do things for you and for your family and, what makes you happy. So that's the dash between those two dates. I really want people to think about that. If you want to connect with me, you can find me. I think LinkedIn is probably the best place, but if you search Wanita Z in the social media space, you'll find me. And if you go to the Online Business Academy, you'll find me as well. We are busy revamping the whole website, so this was fun while we did the interview, but it is back end being revamped as well. But you will find me, so come and look for me.
Listen,
Simon, it's
that's
been
wonderful.
wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful. I was going to say the same thing. I mean, the dash in between the two dates, that's gone in. I will be thinking about that now today,
Yeah,
because that is life, right? That's where it is. That's it.
pretty much.
We come in
And
with
you're
nothing,
right.
we leave with nothing. So
That's it.
it's the dash.
It's
Yeah.
just that dash, and that dash is all you have. So make the most of it. That
Well,
dash is the same, like for everyone. We're going to enter the life. We're going to leave life,
yeah.
and so what are we doing in between that?
Well, that's great. And obviously, people should go and check out everything that is involved in Wanita Z's world. Get involved, check it out. And if you put in Wanita Z or Wanita Z, depending on your pronunciation, wherever you are in the world, you will Juanita will pop up in all the magic search engines, and
Oh
you can go and
yeah,
find out what's happening there and connect. But listen, it
okay,
brings
good.
me nicely to the end of this episode of the Global Discussion. Thank you to everybody around the world who's watching or listening to this episode. Make sure that you follow, like, subscribe, do everything I need you to do to help support the show. And of course, as I say, go and check out everything Wanita's doing. And I hope you join me back here for some more discussions with creatives and leaders and thinkers just like Wanita. Thank you, Wanita. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you so much, Simon. It has been wonderful as well.